Absolutely. Here's the first part of an original, powerful, Jung-inspired monologue that mirrors the depth, structure, and psychological impact of the piece you shared, while remaining unique, fresh, and authentic in voice and message. I'll continue it in following messages to maintain its full length and power. The illusion of her and the birth of you. It always starts with a feeling. Not love, not recognition. Something more dangerous, hope. The kind that doesn't look you in the eyes, but through you. As if you're not real yet, but full of potential. As if you were born to be made by her hands. You feel it, don't you? That electric ache in her gaze. The unspoken belief that you could be someone. If only you'd let her guide the transformation. But make no mistake. You're not being seen. You're being sculpted. And the worst part? You welcome it. Because no one ever taught you the cost of being imagined. This is not about love. This is about projection. An unconscious theater where she casts you in the lead role of a story she's been writing since childhood. She doesn't love you. She loves the echo of a father, the ghost of a savior, the silhouette of a fantasy. Carl Jung warned us, not with Instagram quotes or poetic fluff, but with the brutal honesty of a man who dissected the soul. He spoke of the anima and animus, not just as symbols, but as psychological entities that live within every human being, steering their desires, shaping their relationships, dictating their tragedies. You think she's choosing you? No. She's choosing the mirror you unknowingly held up. And when that mirror cracks, when your flaws bleed through the fantasy, she won't mourn you. She'll grieve the illusion. And you? You'll blame yourself. As if your greatest crime was being real. Jung called this projection a psychic possession, a state in which a person, man or woman, becomes taken over by an internal figure they never made conscious. The woman becomes overtaken by her animus, her internal masculine. He speaks in her mind with certainty, with authority, with the conviction of truth, but he is not truth. He is inherited, wounded, and often tyrannical. And the man? He becomes the puppet. Not because she controlled him, but because he volunteered for the stage. Why? Because you were taught to find your value in her eyes, to win her, to earn her, to be chosen. And in doing so, you forgot the one thing Jung screamed from the depths of his work. You are not whole through her. You are whole through the journey back into yourself. You think the collapse is a failure. The moment she pulls away, the moment she stops laughing at your jokes, the moment her eyes go dim and cold, you panic. You scramble. You beg. You twist yourself into new shapes. Softer, stronger, more useful, more dangerous. Whatever you think will revive the dream. But that dream was never yours. And its death is not your loss. It's your awakening. Because here's the truth. What you called love was dependency. What you called chemistry was trauma recognition. You weren't falling in love. You were falling into a familiar wound. You didn't want her. You wanted redemption. You wanted the pain of your childhood rewritten by her touch. You wanted to be the boy who was finally enough. She was the goddess for that myth. And you were the sacrifice. But gods don't love, they consume. Jung wrote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And here you are, convinced she was your fate. No, she was your mirror, your anima incarnate. She appeared to seduce you not into her arms, but into your initiation. She is not the end of the story. She is the threshold. And now you have two choices. 1. Crawl back into the familiar loop. Find a new face for the same wound. Rebuild the fantasy, re-earn the validation, re-die a slow death. 2. Or walk into the fire. Alone. Naked. No script. No audience. Just the unbearable silence of your own soul, asking, finally, who am I without her gaze? That's when the real work begins. Not the gym. Not the business. Not the hustle. But the descent. Into the father wound. Into the shame. Into the rage you buried so deep it turned into charm. Into the terror that you are nothing unless someone wants you. And if you're brave enough to stand in that void and not flinch, something ancient stirs. Not a better version of you. A truer one. The descent and the shadow. This is where most men run. Not from her, but from themselves. Because once the mask is shattered, once her illusion no longer shields you from the emptiness inside, you meet a stranger in the mirror. A face you've worn your whole life but never truly seen. That's the beginning of descent. Not failure. Not weakness. Initiation. Jung didn't just talk about the unconscious. He mapped its terrain. And buried in that dark landscape is a force he called the shadow, every part of you you've disowned to survive. The rage you swallowed to be nice. The desire you numbed to be safe. The truth you denied to be loved. You buried these pieces deep because someone told you they were too much, too dark, too dangerous. And so, you exiled your power to be acceptable. You traded your soul for peace, for comfort, for her smile. But now, standing in the wreckage of who you thought you were, you have no choice. If you want to rise, you must descend into the basement of your psyche, into the parts of yourself that terrify you, not to destroy them, but to reclaim them. Because here's the secret, your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your strength in disguise. It holds the fire you need to set boundaries, the spine you need to walk away, the roar you need to break free from the script. But you won't access it by reading books or watching videos. You access it by losing everything you thought made you a man: status, sex, attention, and realizing you were still breathing, still here, still alive. And if you can survive that, you are no longer a boy performing for love. You are a man forged in fire, not hungry for validation, but full with presence, not ruled by need, but anchored in truth. Integration, the end of performance. And this is where the real work begins. Once you've stared into your shadow and refused to look away, something shifts. Not in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. You stop trying to fix the world, fix women, fix perception. Because you finally realize the thing that needed healing was never out there. It was always you. And here comes the paradox that makes men falter. You thought individuation would make you stronger in the eyes of others. That by becoming whole, you'd become more desirable. But wholeness has nothing to do with desire. It has to do with truth. And truth, real truth, often costs you everything that isn't built on it. Your fake friendships will fade. Your conditional relationships will wither. The woman who loved your performance will drift. Because now, you're not playing the man anymore. You are him. Unapologetically. Unedited. Uncontrolled. And this unsettles people. Because the individuated man can no longer be negotiated with, seduced, or manipulated. He does not bend to avoid rejection. He does not smile to be liked. He does not sacrifice truth to be embraced. And the world will hate him for that. It will call him arrogant, stoic, emotionally unavailable. But the truth is, he's simply done performing. He's no longer trying to be the right kind of man. He is a man. Whole, complex, contradictory, and sovereign. And that's terrifying to those still clinging to their masks. You'll hear it in her voice. The disappointment. You've changed. No, you've just returned to the self you abandoned. You've stopped playing the savior, stopped being the fantasy, stopped molding yourself to fit a woman's wounded myth. And now, you demand something rare, something radical, reciprocity, not worship, not dependence, not fantasy, but presence. A woman who meets you where you are, not who needs you to shrink so she feels secure. A woman who's walked through her own fire, not one who waits for you to rescue her from it. A woman who chooses you not to fill her emptiness, but to honor your fullness. And here's the strange thing. She exists. But she will not find the man you pretend to be. She will only recognize the man who's burned away everything false. The man who's no longer available to play the lead role in someone else's unconscious drama. The man who has chosen truth over applause, silence over noise, solitude over spectacle. She will not be impressed by how much you give. She will ask how much of yourself you've reclaimed. She will not chase your potential. She will demand your presence. And you'll feel it instantly, the difference between being desired for your mask and being met in your essence. That's when you'll know. The performance is over. And the real life, your life, has finally begun. The real union, alchemy or ashes. So now you've dropped the act. You've walked through the fire. You're no longer a boy disguised as a man. No longer a man performing safety to earn touch. You are present, anchored, full spectrum. And that's when it happens. She arrives. Not the fantasy. Not the savior. Not the wounded girl looking to be rescued. No, her. The woman who did the same descent. Who cracked her own ribs open to crawl into her heart. Who stopped trying to be adored and started trying to be real. And you won't meet her in a romantic script. It won't be music and timing and perfection. It'll be friction, polarity, an almost cellular recognition, not of comfort, but of capacity. She sees you. Not as a project, not as a provider, not as potential. She sees you because she's seen herself. And here's the part most men miss. This kind of woman doesn't need you. She chooses you. And that's more terrifying than being needed, because you can't control it. You can't earn. Not fantasy, but presence. A woman who meets you where you are, not who needs you to shrink so she feels secure. A woman who's walked through her own fire, not one who waits for you to rescue her from it. A woman who chooses you not to fill her emptiness, but to honor your fullness. And here's the strange thing. She exists. But she will not find the man you pretend to be. She will only recognize the man who's burned away everything false. The man who's no longer available to play the lead role in someone else's unconscious drama. The man who has chosen truth over applause, silence over noise, solitude over spectacle. She will not be impressed by how much you give. She will ask how much of yourself you've reclaimed. She will not chase your potential. She will demand your presence. And you'll feel it instantly, the difference between being desired for your mask and being met in your essence. That's when you'll know. The performance is over. And the real life, your life, has finally begun. The real union, alchemy or ashes. So now you've dropped the act. You've walked through the fire. You're no longer a boy disguised as a man. No longer a man performing safety to earn touch. You are present, anchored, full spectrum. And that's when it happens. She arrives. Not the fantasy. Not the savior. Not the wounded girl looking to be rescued. No, her. The woman who did the same descent. Who cracked her own ribs open to crawl into her heart. Who stopped trying to be adored and started trying to be real. And you won't meet her in a romantic script. It won't be music and timing and perfection. It'll be friction, polarity, an almost cellular recognition, not of comfort, but of capacity. She sees you, not as a project, not as a provider, not as potential. She sees you because she's seen herself. And here's the part most men miss. This kind of woman doesn't need you. She chooses you. And that's more terrifying than being needed, because you can't control it. You can't earn. Love after the storm, sacred discipline. So you met her, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who calls out your shadow, not to shame you, but to see you. You stepped into the fire together, and something ancient broke. Not a fairy tale beginning. A holy demolition. The masks didn't slip, they shattered. Now what? Now begins the real work. Because real union doesn't end at "I choose you." It starts there. And what comes next isn't passion or perfection. It's maintenance, attention, brutal honesty. The choice to stay when every wound in you wants to run. You learn that love is not a feeling. It's a practice. It's the practice of truth when lying would be easier. It's the practice of patience when her chaos triggers your control. It's the practice of depth when everything in the world is screaming for distraction. Because here's the thing. Once you've met your match, not just romantically, but spiritually, you don't get to stay shallow. She'll call you deeper. Every time. She'll notice when you're posturing. She'll feel it when you collapse. And she won't let you lie, not because she's cruel, but because she respects your potential. You wanted to be a king? Good. Now show up like one. Not in domination. In devotion. Not with power. With presence. That means you don't get to disappear into your mission and forget to love her. You don't get to use purpose as an excuse to avoid intimacy. You don't get to be conscious in public and emotionally absent at home. She'll see through it. She'll call it out. And if you're wise, you'll thank her. Because what you've entered now is not just relationship. It's a dojo. A sacred container for transformation. Not into better people, but into realer ones. Less defended. More integrated. Fiercely kind. Radically honest. And it doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like shaking hands and ragged breath after a midnight argument. Sometimes it looks like confessing the ugliest thing you've never told anyone, just to see if love can survive it. Because this kind of love is not about performance. It's about exposure. And not everyone can stand that level of nakedness. But if you can look at her and say, "I see you, even now." If she can hold you through your regressions, not as a mother, but as a partner, then something rare begins to emerge. A love not based on need, fear, or fantasy, but on truth. And truth is not romantic. It's revelatory. It wakes you up. And the ones who stay, they don't stay because it's easy. They stay because they've realized. This isn't about being loved. It's about becoming someone worthy of it, over and over again. Together. The kingdom we build, love is legacy. When the storm settles and the work becomes rhythm. When love is no longer a mirror but a forge. Something shifts. You stop asking what love gives you. You start asking what it asks of you. And the answer is never small. Because now, it's not just about healing. It's about building. Not just intimacy, but impact. You've learned to hold each other through chaos. Now you learn to hold a vision, one not born from ego or longing, but from the deepest value made. We do not only love each other for us, we love each other for what our love can do. This is where relationship becomes service. Not martyrdom, not self-erasure, but purpose. You see, mature love does not just look inward. It radiates. It becomes medicine in rooms you never enter. It becomes clarity in the lives of those who never hear your names. Because what's cultivated between two conscious people, when it's real, is not containment. It's a field, and everyone who steps into it feels the difference. It shows in how you parent, how you lead, how you create, how you handle power, money, beauty, grief. It shows in the way your presence makes others feel safer in their own skin. That's the quiet revolution of deep partnership. The way it ripples. Because when a man is truly met, when he is seen, challenged, and loved beyond his shame, he becomes a beacon, not a savior, a signal, to other men, to the world, to the boy he once was, still hiding inside, praying to be called forth. And when a woman is truly held, not caged, not pedestalized, but honored in her chaos and clarity alike, she becomes a force of nature, not domesticated, unleashed, and together. You don't just build a home, you build a kingdom, not the kind that conquers, the kind that blesses. You move through the world with a quiet fire. People won't always know what it is, but they'll feel it. The coherence, the respect, the earned peace. You become a living myth, a testament that it's possible to love with eyes open, to fall without losing yourself, to rise without leaving the other behind, and most of all, to devote not for a season, but for a lifetime, not as captives, as creators. The descent again, the spiral of death and rebirth. No matter how high you rise, love will ask you to descend again, not as punishment, as passage, because the soul does not evolve in a straight line. It moves in spirals, circles within circles, sacred returns. So even in the mature phases, even after the legacy begins to form, there comes a day when the structure cracks, when the myth falters, when one of you loses the thread, not to betrayal, not to malice, but to life. Grief arrives, ambition shifts, desire changes shape, and suddenly the roles no longer fit, and what was once sacred feels strange. This is not failure. This is the deeper initiation, because real love doesn't just go up. It goes down too, into the underworld, into the forgetting, into the place where neither of you knows who you are anymore. As individuals, or as a unit, it's terrifying, because the first descent was about confronting your wounds. This one is about confronting your identities, the parts of you that built the kingdom, that wore the crown, that held the torch, and now must let it burn. To enter the next season, you must both become nobody again. You must choose each other again, not out of memory, but from presence. You must face the truth that love will always demand rebirth, even after the vows, even after the victories, even after decades of devotion, because you're not just growing together, you're growing apart and toward and through each other in ways neither of you can predict. So the question is not, will we ever fall again? You will. The question is, can we fall consciously this time? Can we let the old version of us die without seeing it as a threat, but as an offering? Can we mourn the love that once was while honoring the love that still could be? Because the descent isn't the end. It's the door to the deepest intimacy you've ever known, not just between you, but within you. The descent breaks what is no longer true to make space for what is, and if you're willing to walk through it together, even if trembling, you'll find something wilder than safety, something holier than perfection. You'll find the love that includes death and still says, I choose you. Again, the final union, devotion without end. At the end, there is no climax, no fireworks, no flawless harmony, no final prize. There is just presence, two souls sitting side by side, weathered, not worn, marked, not broken, still becoming, never finished. What began in fire, survived the flood, endured the void, descended into shadow, now rests in something quieter, not the silence of emptiness, the silence of arrival. You stop trying to make it perfect. You stop demanding it feel how it once did. You stop needing to be right or whole or desirable. You just are, together, still curious, still unfinished, still human, but with a love that no longer performs. a devotion that no longer grasps, a connection that no longer needs to prove itself, because something deeper has taken root. Not passion, not security, not even purpose, but peace. The peace of being fully seen, not just in your greatness, but in your limits, and still being chosen, not because of momentum, not because of obligation, but because the soul recognizes home. This is the final union, where nothing is guaranteed, and nothing needs to be, because you've walked through the fire together. You've failed together. You've risen together. You've lost yourselves, and found yourselves, and watched each other evolve in ways no one else ever saw. And now you are not holding a relationship. You are holding a reality, built from choice, from surrender, from countless deaths, and the quiet rebirths that followed. Not a fairy tale, a sacred truth. That love is not something you find. It's something you build. And if you're lucky, if you're brave, it's something you keep building, even after the storm has passed, even when the house is quiet, even when there's nothing left to prove. Just two souls, still here, still choosing, still loving, without end. Would you like a final coda, epilogue, or reflection tying all 9 parts together?